So this is the first of 4 presentations that we're going to have today, and we're going to do the same 4 presentations tomorrow as well. This one is going to be about energy efficient ventilation as well as a new option for improving pullet feeding in your house. So a little bit about me for those that don't know me. Went to school for engineering at Penn State. After I went there, I came to work at Chore-Time in 2017, and I worked there as a floor feeding engineer for 4 years, but had the opportunity to work in a couple other different projects in the ventilation, flex auger, watering product lines. In 2021, I moved into the product manager role, primarily dealing with the broiler products, which includes floor feeding, ventilations, all the fans, watering systems, and flex auger. And in that role, I get to work with our distributors, integrators, our sales staff to help drive direction of that product line. And when I'm not working, I enjoy reading. I've been playing guitar for about 20 years, so I do a lot of that, and then love to travel. So the first portion of this presentation is going to be about energy efficient ventilation. We'll talk a little bit about the global energy market, just a little bit of an overview, understanding the basics of poultry house ventilation, the benefits of direct drive fans and all variable speed technology, some challenges that we're going to need to overcome as an industry related to direct drive fans, and then last, a case study and some of the results that we've been seeing in real-world testing. So first, we'll talk about the global energy market. So obviously, power usage in poultry houses is becoming more and more important as we have more and more electronic-powered things in these houses. If you think about your climate control, your ventilation, lighting, your control units, your water pumps, feed handling, all of that stuff uses electricity, and we continuously see new products coming out that use electricity in these poultry houses. So it's really important to understand your market, your energy market within your area. Is your country self-sufficient on energy? Do you rely on the import of natural resources? How is the electricity in your area generated? These are all really important things to understand. So if we look at the United States as kind of a little market study, about 60% of the electricity generated in the United States comes from 2 resources, and that's natural gas and coal. So that's 60%. The world has been trying to go towards more renewable energy sources, as you see in kind of the middle area, the wind, hydro, solar power. But due to some economic factors, it's kind of slowed down and hasn't made as much progress as they'd been hoping, because obviously power security is more important than, renewable energy. We're going to continue to rely on the supply chains of natural resources. Obviously, global events affects these energy markets. We all dealt with COVID on a large scale and saw what that did. A great example is the Ukraine war that actually created the highest prices for natural gas and coal that we've ever seen. And if you think about the slide that I just showed you before, where the United States is reliant 60% on natural gas and coal for energy production, that's a pretty significant thing when those 2 resources are hitting record highs. And then there's also a significant interdependence between all the countries and all these natural resources. It's really a pretty intricate web. And if you look at this graphic, this is just showing natural gas movements, the major trade movements in 2022, but there's graphs like this for all different natural resources. So as you can imagine, if something happens with one of these major players, the entire network is affected. This has all resulted in energy prices obviously rising basically nonstop since the 70s. There's only been one period since 1970 where over a 5-year span, electricity prices have not risen. And that was from 94 until 2000. And then there's a little typo there, but in 2001, it went right above. So it didn't last for long. And obviously what this means is there's going to be continued reliance on innovative ways to save electrical costs in the poultry operations. So how does this relate to ventilation in poultry houses? A little overview of ventilation. Obviously, your main objectives of ventilating a house: supply fresh air to the birds, regulate your temperature, your humidity, make sure you reduce the air contaminants. We've all been in houses where those things are not optimal and it's not fun to be there, and it's also not great for bird performance. If you underventilate, you have increased CO2 in your house. You've got increased temperatures, increased ammonia, excessive dust particles. If you overventilate, you get cold birds, energy waste, which is a big one if we're trying to save on energy costs, and then excessive wear and tear on your products in your house, which is never good because you're going to have to replace them more often. And it's really important to ensure that you have the proper setup in these houses to get the proper ventilation. So when you're setting up these houses, you really have two main options for the types of fans that you're going to put into your house. You've got belt drive fans and you've got direct drive fans. So direct drive fans, as you can see in this picture on the left, the motor is attached directly to the fan blade, so the fan blade directly on the shaft of the motor. And then with the belt drive fans, you can see the motor out here. There's a pulley on the motor, there's a pulley on the fan blade, and then there's a belt that connects the two of them. So what makes the direct drive motor stand out? Well, first off, since you don't have those belts, you don't have belt slippage and power losses due to belt wear. So even though that's usually only accounting for a few percentage at a time, when you add that up over all the fans in your house or all the fans in multiple houses, that can add up to quite a bit of energy loss over time. Direct drive motors also tend to be more efficient, especially with the way we run them and the scheme that we run them in. And then they also tend to be a little bit more quiet, which might seem like an odd benefit, but especially when you have neighbors and things in the area and, poultry in general, sometimes neighbors don't always love that. Keeping the sound levels down is always a bonus. So some advantage of direct drive fans, lower maintenance. Like I just mentioned, you don't have belts, you don't have pulleys, you don't have bearings that you need to constantly maintenance. And what does that translate to for our integrators and growers? It saves us time and money, and that's always something people can get on board with. Another advantage is the variable speed, and this is a really important one. It allows you to adjust the speed of the fan. So you get more control over the airflow and the temperature within the house. In this graph in blue, you can see a typical belt drive fan air graph versus a belt drive set or versus a direct drive setup in red. And you can see that due to the ability to vary the speed of these fans, you have a much smoother transition for the direct drive fans than you do for the belt drive fans. And then the great thing about this is also once you set up your Chore-Tronics controller, it has all the technology and smarts in it that you need for it to manage all of the fans turning on and off all by itself. The last benefit I'll talk about is obviously the one most people are worried about, and that's the energy savings. So like I mentioned, you don't have those performance losses due to the belt slip. You also have an inherently better motor design with these direct drive fans, especially related to our offering, which is the EnduraMax. The variable speed option allows you to run that fan in what I like to call the sweet spot. So a motor tends not to be its most efficient at its highest speed at 100%. It tends to be at, let's say, around 70 or so percent. So when you have all variable speed, you're able to run these fans closer to that sweet spot for a longer period of time, which translates to energy savings for the grower. And then again, specific to the EnduraMax, which is Chore-Time's direct drive fan offering, it has a higher max CFM capability. So if you're comparing an Endura belt drive fan and an EnduraMax fan, you can actually get the same exact CFMs running the direct drive version at a lower RPM, which is going to be closer to that energy efficient sweet spot and get more energy efficiency on your farm. Some challenges we're going to have to overcome as an industry related to direct drive fans. In the past, there was a big push for direct drive fans in the early 2000s. These motors were not necessarily known to be the most reliable, but technology has obviously changed in the last 2 decades. I think back to what phones were around in 2000, and I'm pretty sure I was playing the video game Snake on my parents' Nokia brick phone, and now we've got basically supercomputers in our pockets. So obviously technology has changed. VFDs, direct drive motors, are much more reliable, and they're used in a ton of daily appliances such as your washers and your dryers on a daily basis. Something else we're going to have to overcome is the perception that direct drive technology is just too expensive. And while it is going to be more expensive for a direct drive fan than a belt drive fan in comparable, fan performance, we have to understand the value proposition because good things tend to cost more money. So if we understand that we're going to get a higher performing fan, we understand that we have the capability with the direct drive fans to use variable speed. We get those energy savings and we save on maintenance, the time and labor associated with that. Those are all significant benefits to the direct drive fan, helping with the cost. And then these are all things that you can put a dollar figure to. So there may be situations where in your climate with your energy costs, direct drive fans just might not be for your area. But there are a lot of areas where if you look at the climate, you look at your energy usage, and you look at your cost, especially with electricity costs rising, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for direct drive fans in our market. And last, there's state and government operated subsidy programs where you can get quite a bit of money if you're taking, especially in retrofit operations, some belt drive less efficient fans and converting them into more efficient direct drive fans. One of the last things I'll talk about today on industry things we need to overcome is that direct drive fans are just too confusing. People are unsure how to manage direct drive fans because it's the fear of the unknown. It's something new to them, and that's understandable. But people without experience that are talking about, what they can assume will go wrong and what could come up, that's always going to happen. But that's why it's extremely important to educate ourselves on the reality of the situation. In-person trainings are a great way to do this. Web tutorials, industry presentations similar to what I'm trying to do today, some workshops that I know a lot of the universities have. Those are all great and I think really important options to help us with this, the idea that direct drive fans are confusing. But I think getting direct drive fans into the field is really going to be the #1 way that we do this. We get people with hands-on experience, and that's always the best way to learn. Last, I'm going to talk to you guys about a case study of a house that we have in the field with direct drive fans. So this house is in the lower part of the southeast of the U.S. It is not a research farm, so while we tried to get the houses as similar as possible and they're in the same farm, same area, same grower, obviously we didn't go in there and make sure exactly every single spec was perfect, but it's a real application and it's growing birds for an integrator. So I wanted you guys to know when I show you guys the next slide, the 14 cent per kilowatt hour energy cost. Some of you may say, wow, that's really high. It might be right on for some of you, and others might say, wow, I wish my energy costs were that low for my farm. And both houses are using the Chore-Tronics controller. So if you look here, basically we have a graph showing essentially a year-long trial that we did with this farm. We had 6 different flocks. You can see the start and end date of the flocks on the left there. We have house 1, which is all direct drive fans, house 2, which is all belt drive fans, and that shows their power usage. And then we have the percent savings and then the dollar savings associated with that percent savings. So as you can see on this farm, with the essentially 14 cent kilowatt hour cost for electricity, we saved about 37% over the year on the direct drive house over the belt drive house, and that equated to about $2,000, which is significant as you think about that's going to be revenue for you that you're getting on your farm every single year once you pay off your fans. Another thing I wanted to point out is depending on the month, for instance, in a colder month like here in November into December, you're not going to use as much of your ventilation. So even though you're going to see pretty high power saving percentage, the dollar amount associated that isn't going to be as interesting as your summer months and in August or July when you're seeing quite a bit more, 5 times the dollar savings there. And also, depending on your climate, like I mentioned, this is in the southeast United States. If you have a farm that's in a cold climate and maybe you don't have the highest energy costs, maybe it doesn't make sense to do an entire house of all variable speed direct drive fans. We've seen a lot of success with just moving your min vent fans into a direct drive fan. And again, that's a lower cost barrier to entry, so you're not having to update 12, 18 fans, whatever your house has, and you're still getting a lot of the energy benefits, especially if you're in a climate where min vent is going to be a lot of your fan usage. So that was all I had about the energy efficient ventilation. I'm going to quickly touch on the KONAVI Pullet Feeder, which is a great option to help improve your pullet operation. So with the KONAVI Pullet Feeder, we are building on the success that we've had with the KONAVI Broiler Feeder. It still has the same low pan height, so birds can get in there from day one easily. It's got the grillless excluder design, which basically keeps the feed in and the birds out, helping with preventing disease spread since the birds can't get in there and defecate into the pan. And then the way that the engineers designed this, it is extremely easy to clean. There's not a bunch of nooks and crannies in the plastic for feed to get gunked up in there. The KONAVI Pullet also has our new locking and hinge design. So it's a positive lock system, no more key, which is great for inventory because we don't have to stock keys anymore. It has 2 hinges. So this is showing the hinge close up. It's a ball and joint hinge design. And it has 2 points of contact for stability. It's very easy to clean. The way that the engineering group designed it, feed can't really get stuck in there too easily. It's easy to wash out. And then it was designed to be fully power washable. So you can drop that pan down flat, With the old KONAVI, it was essentially just a hook that was on there to hang your pans. It wasn't necessarily meant for power washing, but we had a lot of requests from the market asking if it could be power washable. So with this, you can drop that down. The 2 joints are extremely durable, and you can power wash your pans without having to worry about them flying everywhere. The pullet feeder was tailored for pullet success. So we have a new cap. It's heavy duty, meant for the aggressive feeding habits that we have with pullets. We have a reshaped skirt that helps distribute the feed out to the edge of the pan, which allows the birds to have plenty of space while they're eating, so they're in a very favorable eating position, which makes them comfortable and therefore calmer. We have a restrictor and a newly redesigned cone, so together all of that is used to restrict the feed necessary for your pullet applications. And we've seen a lot of success with this feeder, especially using it in a presentation style feeding method. So feeder and flock management, we do use index lines to get the feed down through the house very efficiently. There's no more collecting stuck birds in the pans because we have this grillless design where birds cannot get stuck in the pans. You measure your feed restriction at the front of the house with like a weigh scale at the beginning, so you can ration your feed out as necessary for pullet operations. And then there's also some pretty cool additional features that we can get if you use this pan along with the Chore-Tronics Breeder Edition. So you can adjust the light clocks for feeding times and non-feeding times. And another pretty cool feature that I thought was interesting was you can actually turn on extra tunnel fans when they're about to feed. So you think all the birds are laying down, and when they stand up, they're going to release a lot of extra heat. So the Breeder Edition of the Chore-Tronics allows you to kick on an extra fan to make sure that you're removing that heat from the house. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me for that. A little summary of what we talked about. Make sure you understand your local energy markets. It's going to continue to be more and more important, and as world events happen, it's important to know how that's going to affect your energy prices in your area. Direct drive fans have some significant advantages over the belt drive fans, especially depending on your energy prices and the climate of your area. The direct drive fans will be able to help you produce a lower energy impact on your farm. And then the pullet feeder, tailored for success, building off of the KONAVI broiler feeder, which has had a lot of success, just adapting it for pullet applications. And we've had a lot of success with this pullet feeder in the applications that we have in the field. So with that, I thank you guys for sitting in on this presentation. Definitely come and talk to us. We got a lot of knowledgeable people on direct drive fans and the pullet feeder. And with that, if you have any questions, I believe this QR code should hook you up to the website, or come and find me after the presentation. Thank you guys.